So hello, I am Paul O'D of the MMA Opinion, and I am delighted to be joined on the line this evening by Jimmie El Terror Rivera. How are you doing, Jimmy?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Very good. And I do just want to touch on, obviously, first you're facing into a rematch with Pedro Munhoz, a rematch that's 6 years in the making, on February 13th at UFC 258. You're probably winding down your camp right now. How has the camp been for you so far?
Okay, it's been good. It's been a little longer than usual, but I don't mind it. We're supposed to fight in November, and then I got pushed back again and pushed back to the January. Then I had some personal stuff and I pushed back to February. So, I mean, everything's in line now. So I'm looking forward to it. We're about like 2.5 weeks out before the fight. So feeling good.
Very good. And you do, of course, have a teammate, Julio Arca, who's fighting a week before you, making, I believe it's his first trip down to bantamweight. It must be very handy to have someone that's also in camp in your training center as well that's fighting at bantamweight.
Yeah, I mean, he actually started his career at bantamweight. He went up to featherweight, and now he's coming back down. So he's one of those guys who's a little bit of in betweener. I mean, he could be a 45er or he could be a 35er. So he just honestly has to pick where he wants to be and just stay there.
Yeah, but I mean, just for training purposes, obviously the 2V being in camp at the same time must be of benefit for you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we had a lot of guys. We were supposed to have Shane Burgos fight. Unfortunately, his opponent got hurt. We had a lot of guys in the lower weight classes, so it ends up working out really well to get ready for a fight.
Yeah. And I do want to touch on the first bout with Pedro. Of course, it's 2015 now. It feels like a lifetime ago. Going into that fight, you were the underdog in that fight, and you came out. And I suppose after round one, you were comfortably winning that fight up to that point. And then round two and round three were very close. Back and forth war. Are you expecting something similar this time? Are you expecting a big war from Pedro again?
For sure. I mean, I do like the stylistic and fighting him because he stands in the pocket and he doesn't scurry. So it's a nice to have that as a fighter. And I'm obviously always looking for I'm looking. The fight with him and I last was a war, and I assume this one's going to be one too as well.
Very good. And you've Pedro, of course, is coming off two losses. He had the loss to Aljo and the loss to Frankie. You found yourself in a similar position coming up to July of last year. Do you think going into this bout that you can kind of get a feel for where Pedro's motivation is at coming into this fight? And do you feel like that's
Uh,
to your advantage?
you know what? I don't really overthink it. I don't think about it. Excuse me. I don't dwell on it. Yeah, he's got two losses. Obviously, he wants to get a win, but I want to get a win too. So, really, you know what? It's not one of those things that crossed my mind to ask, and I really can't answer because I'm not sure how he feels. Obviously, if it was me in those shoes, obviously I want to get the win. But on the
Yeah.
other hand, he's got a tough opponent. I mean, that's same thing. Yeah, even though I won my last fight, I got a tough opponent ahead of me that I have to focus on.
Yeah. And lucky at the bantamweight division, you have some absolute killers and some fire fights going on at the moment. Of course, on February 6th, you have Sandhagen and Edgar. On the 27th, you have Assunção is competing against Barcelos. March 6th, then you have Cruz and Kenny and Yan and Sterling. Are you going to be keeping a very close eye on all those fights? And is it a case of, do you think you're one fight away after this, or do you think the division is too competitive to call right now?
I think it all depends on the performance. One or two fights away. Um, yeah, it should be interesting to see Cruz fight. Corey Sandhagen and Frankie, I'm interested in the outcome. And, same thing with Sterling Yan, interested in the outcome. What was the fight in February you were talking about?
Yeah, so Rafael Assunção is
Oh,
fighting on the
Salsa.
27th against Reone Barcelos.
Yeah, I don't really know much about his opponent. All I know is the South's like, what, 3-fight losing streak right now?
Yeah,
So I think it's one of those fights that's either going to make him or break him.
yeah. And Barcelos is kind of on the cusp of getting there. He's been very interesting since his signing so far. I do want to touch on the what you've done with the law enforcement as of late, and especially with Elmwood Park Police Chief Foligno. You have a program and an initiative set up with them. Do you want to talk me a little bit through that?
Yeah, so I developed a program with the Elmwood Park Police Department where they have to train. Actually, me and the chief developed the program together. They are mandated to train with me 3 times a month. They're not allowed to miss. And with that, we do an hour of jujitsu and a half hour of boxing, offense, defense. The main purpose of the program is that, a lot of times it depends on the state, obviously, but a lot of times these officers go in, they only do a week defensive tactics, close range self-defense, jiu-jitsu, and it's not always the most up-to-date stuff. So they only do a week in the academy, and then most of them, when they come out, they don't continue training. You have very few that do. And it's very important for them to understand that they have to continue training and know how to defend themselves. It's really important. It's not something you do for a couple of weeks. It's something that you continuously do. Take care of yourself, be in shape, but learn how to defend yourself, because you're out there protecting yourself, protecting innocent bystanders. You're also protecting the criminals themselves. You have to control them. And the whole program, I'm sorry, excuse me.
You're all right.
The whole program is based on being able to hold someone down without doing submissions or locks, learn how to use your body. At the same time, they're learning just basic principles of boxing, offense and defense. So this way, if you need to throw punches, you can. It's real basic, but a lot of the stuff that they're learning, it's very high rate on the street. It's how someone would act normally. If you push someone, they push you back. How to use your body weight. And cops are not taught that. And instead of them resorting to their gun or their taser or the OC spray, they can resort to now of just using their hands to defend themselves or a bystander without having to resort to deadly force. It's a huge turn. I know other companies that do it. Our biggest thing is that we're not someone to do it for a couple of weeks and stop. These officers have to train with me until they retire, until they have some ailment where they can't train, for some reason. And a lot of the officers that are there are people that are on patrol. They're out on the street, for 12-hour shifts, 4 days a week, until they have their 4 days off, and they're with me training on whether their days off or after their shift, depending on what class they're going to come in to do their 3 times a month. And, 3 times a month is just like a minimum. I would love to have them more, but, it does take a lot of time. It's a little time consuming that. But at least they're getting something out of it. So they continuously do this for the rest of their time until retirement. It'll really help them. And a lot of them have got a lot out of it. They got in shape from it. And not even that, being a police officer and being in there and seeing people and see what they deal with, it's a very stressful job. So if they're able to relieve stress, that really helps out. You think about it, a lot of jobs are stressful. What do you do for stress? Do people drink? People, drugs? Some people work out. This is a great way to work out. At the same time they're working out, they're also learning how to defend themselves and help save others as well, defend others as well. I mean, not everybody knows how to defend themselves. That's why there's police officers, and they enforce the law and help people that are in need.
Yeah. And how did you get involved in this initiative? Is this something that you instigated, approached them, or did they approach you and your camp about someone getting involved in it?
Well, Chief Felino and I have been working together for a while now, and we just started talking about it, and we decided to actually launch the program after my Cody Stamen fight. So we've been doing it since August, and it's been some times we have slowed down a little bit just because COVID. It's been up and down, especially in these winter months. But we launched it in August. We've been going strong. From there, it's just something that we spoke about. He was really interested in doing it, and I'm a very proactive guy, so so is he, and we just launched it and started doing it right away.
Very good. And is this something that you hope that people can see it, that it's working, and that they take this as kind of an initiative nationwide, and it can kind of change the culture that people view the police in America?
For sure. I mean, you always have your good cops, so you always have bad cops. I think one of the biggest things I see with police officers is that you have some people that are very young and they're mature at that age and they don't abuse the power, but you also have some people who are young, now they get power and they abuse it. And some of them grow out of it and some of them don't. You do have your mix of the bunch. Unfortunately, one bad cop gives 100 bad cops a bad rap. I mean, excuse me, I said that way wrong. One bad cop gives 100 good cops a bad rap.
Yeah.
That's what happens. I mean, we've always had that. I've owned schools before. I own a school now in Brooklyn. You have one bad student.
We've lost you there for a second.
That's just the way it is. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I know you're good.
We have one bad student that one bad apple ruins the bunch. Yeah. So with that said, it's great working with Chief Lee. The guys in his department great. There's been some people I assume weeded out before I got there, and he really cares about the people in his town because he is on the board of the town, but he's also the chief as well, and he cares about his officers and them helping everybody and setting an example. So it's a big thing when you put on that uniform. You have to be a prime example of ideal citizen. Yeah. And you do get a bunch of different cases and stuff like that, but you have to keep it cool. And in a way to keep it cool, in a way the program's set up, it's that not only that they're learning to defend themselves, but the more you learn how to defend yourself in all different situations, that builds your confidence. And when someone's confident like that, they go into the situation 10 times more confident, relaxed, calm, collected, and be able to really de-escalate. One of the biggest things that the chief will probably bust my chops right now if I wouldn't mention is that when we do stuff, everything's de-escalation. So I went through a whole course, so did all the officers. Everything's verbal first, verbal judo they call it. Yeah. So a lot of it's de-escalating. If you go into something going 60 to 100 miles an hour right away, you're not going to be able to bring it back. But if you go in there 1-2 miles an hour, and if you have to slowly bring it up, then you can, but you can never go 0 to 100 real quick and try to come back to 0 again. That just doesn't happen. So I do teach them too as well when they hold someone down using their body to use their words to, stop resisting, calm them down. A lot of it has to do, I think a good analogy has to do is that you have a kid that's throwing a tantrum. You hug him, you hold him, he's going crazy. After a minute or two, he calms down. He's still crying a little bit, but he's eventually calming down and relaxing. And that's one of the, I guess you could say, a concept that I throw in there and give them that analogy so they understand, how they approach the situation if it does become violent.
Yeah, and as you say, I suppose the confidence from MMA it would naturally lead to situations being de-escalated because they're not going in there amped up. They don't have that adrenaline, and they're not going in there nervous themselves. They're going in with an element of confidence to begin with.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so look, I do want to get back to the fighting.
No problem.
Yeah.
Sorry, it got me going.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's good to hear about it, and it's a great initiative. Fair play for being involved. I suppose back to Pedro Munhoz, and with a win here, what do you think is next for you in the division, and where do you see yourself? Are you aiming for top 5 next, considering you guys are just outside there at 6 and 7 or 7 and 8?
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough to tell. It's hard to see what's going on, especially with you guys see who's available. I haven't looked at the rankings recently. I don't know if Cody's still in there. Yeah. If Dominic Cruz wins, where do they put him? If Assunção wins, where does he go?
Yeah.
I figure obviously if their opponents win, they'll probably take their spot around there. What'll happen with the Corey Frankie fight? Yeah. I mean, who's tied up, who's not hurt? That has a big factor. I mean, I was trying to get in right away, October, November, but it's tough because a lot of guys in the top 7, 8 were hurt.
Yeah.
So it's a tough thing. You just got to kind of work around and see what happens.
Yeah. So as far as I know, Cody has mentioned that he's going to be sticky around at 35 and not moving down just yet. But I believe he's looking for the Aldo fight. And without the two of those, there is a lot of the guys above you kind of matched up, but it seems to be over this next 2-month period, there is a lot of them competing. So there is an opportunity, I suppose, that the fact that you're all competing around the same kind of 3 to 4 week period, that everyone will be available around the same time. It seems like the time to be making a big shout on the mic if you're going to be picking up a big victory, to be calling out one of the top dogs in the division.
Yeah, yeah, I would have to see that week and kind of see how things fall and see how the Corey and Hangin and Frank Yeager fight goes, and kind of see if any new news comes. You know what I mean? If anybody's got a fight, if Aldo ends up fighting Cody or something like that, I think it's it's anybody's ball game in a way. I think it depends on performance. It should be really interesting to see what happens. Again, not having the rankings in front of me, I'm not really sure because you have Aldo off 1 win and myself right now. But if I fight Pedro, it'll be a little different. And I got to get the win.
Yeah.
You have Rob Font that came in with a big win. There's a lot of guys. Cody had his last fight; it was a win. He didn't get the fight at 25. So it's kind of interesting to see what happens and kind of go from there. I guess I got to play it by ear.
Yeah, of course. And the last time I did speak to you, you mentioned Rafael Assunção, and that was a fight that you were hoping to get booked because he had been back and forth, I think. Um, Obviously, he needs a big win against Barcelos to stay active in the division. But is that still something you're interested in, or are you looking to move further up the ranks? And I do, of course, have to mention that TJ is possibly returning. Is that a fight you would
Yeah.
be interested in as well?
I mean, that's a huge fight. I would love. I think if I had to pick right away, obviously fight the champ or whoever
Yeah.
the champ's going to be after that fight. But then next in line is fighting like someone like, TJ or Aldo or Frankie. Just even Aldo and Frankie, those guys are legends. To fight them would be awesome. Just like when
Yeah.
I fought Faber. So that's always awesome to do and to be in there and fight those guys. I don't know. It all depends what happens and stylistically what works out. It's can't really pick and choose. And then again, it's not really even me picking and choosing. I can say I want to fight this guy, but the UFC is like, oh no, you got these two options, or you only got this option, and this is the only date. So it's really out of my hands most of the time.
Yeah, and I don't want to keep you too much longer. I do just we do this thing on MMA Opinion where we ask our guests to tell us something we don't know about them. So is there anything that we don't know about Jimmie Rivera?
One of my mental things, I think I don't know if I show it all the time, but one of my mental things, a mental break. I like putting stuff together, whether it's, a wood project or taking something apart, putting together, taking apart, but I'm big into like Legos, like as a kid, I guess brings back good memories. So, I have a handful upstairs that like I'll take a couple hours just to take a mental break and just put some stuff together and relax. And I guess it's just being able to put it together reminded me of childhood and just kind of just keeping my brain sharp. Yeah, it's a little escape. So it's nice to do that. So I guess that's probably a random fact. I don't know if I ever mentioned that. I mentioned here and there randomly, but not something I don't have on my Instagram. Oh, look at my Legos, maybe eventually. My wife and I just moved, so it'd be nice to I got little displays and stuff that I have to set up. So it'd be nice to maybe eventually kind of display them, and maybe I'll take a picture and, show people. I think one of my biggest accomplishments is I've done that big Millennium Falcon.
Nice.
And I finally found like a coffee table, a glass, like plexiglass coffee table to put it in. So now I'm just kind of waiting for my man cave to get couches, and that's our coffee table right there. And I think that it took me about like 40 hours, I think I want to say about. I did like an hour.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I did an hour a day a month, and some days I would do 2 or 3 hours, so about 40 hours, 40 to 50 hours, but I got it done. Let me tell you, that thing is not easy to move. I had to bribe my wife to hold it in the car when we moved, was buying her plants and stuff like that. So that was funny. Like literally probably picked the wrong car to do it in. I picked our compact car, wanted to move it, and she was in a funny position. So, I mean, at the end, I think I still got the better deal of it because I only had to buy her a couple plants, and she was like, "It should have been like 10 plants," and I got her to agree with 5. So I think I made out on that deal. But yeah, I think it's a nice thing to do. I mean, I bought one for my wife for us to kind of do eventually, but life is so busy now. I bought the Hogwarts Castle for us to do, and I bought the Destroyer. Now I just got to figure out when I would do it, how much time I want to take to do it. One of those, obviously, we were supposed to start earlier, and then I have a whole bunch of stuff. I don't have a lot of free time. People always want to do stuff. I'm like, well, with working and teaching and training and doing 2-a-days when I have a fight. I mean, when I have a fight, it takes up a lot of my time. It's like my main priority.
Yeah.
So it's tough to have free time, and I'm really like to do a lot of other things and incorporate a lot of things. It's just hard because that time, man. When I was a kid, I would always say, why would people adults say they wish for more time in a day? As a grown adult, I say it now, and I'm like, I wish there was more time in the day. I wish like I got home and you have 4 more hours, before I have like 1 more hour to go to bed. I got 4 more hours to kind of kill and do other things, but there really isn't that much time in the day. So I just try to get as much done as I can. And, I think the hardest thing is probably my wife agrees with me is relaxing a little bit, but Yeah, that's probably one of the things, man. That and I can't relax.
Yeah. Well, I think the Millennium Falcon would definitely be something that's Instagram worthy. You might even get a sponsorship out of Lego off it. You never know. And you
I
did,
know.
yeah, you did mention as well the last time we were speaking that you were hoping to get over to Ireland. Obviously, with everything with COVID, that's impossible at the moment.
My wife was supposed to go, and I was hoping to go, and it just didn't work out. She had a whole trip planned, and it got canceled because of COVID. I mean, hopefully another year or two, kind of get back to somewhat of a norm, but who knows? I mean, we love to travel, and we just hope we can eventually do it.
Yeah, well, definitely hit us up when you're over and we'll look after you here. Listen, thank you
For
very
sure.
much, Jimmy, for coming on, and we appreciate your time massively.
Anytime, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Take care.